Good evening. We are so excited to welcome you to our Bloomfield Virtual Orientation. We appreciate your patience as the board meeting concluded, and we're so glad that you're here today. We're going to start off this evening just by introducing ourselves. I am Jen Teal, the principal of Bloomfield Virtual. I've been in Bloomfield Hills Schools for 20 years. This is my 21st year in the district. And I have been a classroom teacher as well as an instructional coach. And my husband and I are mom and dad to two boys, one of whom is in third grade, actually in Bloomfield Virtual this year, and the other who is in sixth grade at West Hills. Good evening. We are so excited to welcome you to our Bloomfield Virtual Orientation. We appreciate your patience as the board meeting concludes.
And then my name is Lauren Dempsey. I'm our district's tech integration specialist. I've been with the district for a couple of years now, and I also have two little ones, and my oldest is about to start kindergarten at Conant in the district as well. We're very excited to be with you here to bring you a little bit more information about Bloomfield Virtual and what it's going to look like.
So we want to start by kind of centering our conversation and our sharing with you in terms of the mission of Bloomfield Virtual. And the focus really of that is about this being an equitable, caring, and safe learning community where students are encouraged to be intellectually curious and academically ambitious. And we have the benefit of using technology and community so that we can really promote student agency and really make sure that our learners can achieve all that they want to. So we wanted to share a little bit more about what learning is going to look like when your children are part of Bloomfield Virtual. So one of the things that obviously we've all been dealing with a little bit is the fact of isolation during this time. And we want to make sure that you all know that we are working incredibly hard to make sure that being virtual doesn't mean that you're alone. So as part of Bloomfield Virtual, our teachers are working so hard to get their classrooms ready and to welcome your kiddos next week in a really learner-centered environment. Just like in their brick and mortar buildings, this is a space where kids come first and the learning really is developed around them. And probably more this year than any time, it's really important that we create that sense of belonging for a lot of your children, a lot of us. It's been an isolating time, and we want to make sure that we make connections and celebrate being back together for an amazing school year and really take time to get to know one another. The teachers will be spending a lot of time building community next week and introducing new classmates and themselves and really trying to get them excited about this year ahead and everything that it can be. The other two things that we're excited about are that, as you know, as part of Bloomfield Hills Schools, we have the fantastic school farm and we have the nature center. And when it is appropriate and permissible, we look forward to using those facilities so that your kiddos can experience some of that place-based learning that those two sites offer for us. And finally, we in Bloomfield Hills at all of our schools center our learning around the portrait of a learner. And that document really helps center teachers and families so that it's clear what our priorities are. And it names 5 basic tenets. And those are that we want to make inquirers, we want to help your children understand different perspectives, we really want to teach them how to have respectful dialogue. We want to help them grapple with complexities, and this is certainly a good time to be doing that. And we want to encourage them to take responsible action so that they can really make their mark in the world and understand how they can make their community a better place as well. One of the things as we were thinking about what we wanted to share with you tonight, we thought it was important to share a couple of the terms that have been bouncing around and that we realize may not be particularly familiar to you at this point. So some of these are a little more specific to the virtual environment, but they're also just education jargon that sometimes we forget that as educators we're used to hearing and maybe not all families are. So, the first one that I think has been talked about a lot is the difference between synchronous engagement and asynchronous engagement. And when we get to talking about what a day might look like for your child or your children, there will be times where the teacher will be live on the screen interacting with them. And then there may be times where there's some music playing and the screen is not on, and your children are invited to do some silent reading or to work on some math practice or to draw a picture and tell a story. And there will be times, as you know, where there will be time to be away from the screen completely because that's so important, especially for our youngest learners. And so we're going to be working on that blend of what that looks like. Another term that we use a lot is flipped classroom when we talk about virtual teaching and learning. And in a flipped classroom approach, the idea is simply that instead of introducing a new idea live and then asking kids to practice on their own, one of the things that technology affords us the opportunity to do is to actually introduce the concept through something like a video and then do the practice together. Because obviously, we find that it's often when kiddos are doing the practice that they need the help. It's not necessarily during the explanation portion. The next term is workshop. We use a workshop approach to reading and writing and math in Bloomfield Hill schools, and it will be no different now that you are part of the Bloomfield Virtual community this year. And that idea is just that it is very centered around the learner and their inquiry and their independent learning. So a teacher would present a mini lesson. Those are usually quite short, somewhere from 5 to 10 minutes around a concept. And then there would be some small group practice so that kiddos can kind of get their feet wet and practice those skills. And then there would be a chance for individual practice. And one of the key components is that then the teacher can really conference with kids one on one to really help them where they are. The last one is formative assessment. And this is just the idea that teachers do their work best when they are constantly checking understanding for their kids and really thinking about in this moment, what do these students need? And one of the great parts of having technology and being virtual is there are so many fantastic tools that teachers can use to formatively assess their children. And there's a great likelihood that some of this will feel just like games and playing to your kiddos because they are so talented, these teachers, at really craftily assessing their skills in a way that is fun and engaging. And all the time, they are making small decisions about how to adjust their instruction. So, hopefully, those terms kind of help you understand a little bit about what teachers will be sharing with you and what we'll be talking about this evening.
In addition to introducing you to some of the educational terms, we also wanted to bring to your attention some of the tools that we'll be using to help your students access all of their materials and access their teachers online. So the first one, if you haven't already been there, is our parent portal that's accessible through the My Bloomfield website. And you can use this website to look up things like your student's email address, find their password, get information on who their teacher is, all that sort of a thing. Google Classroom is going to be your main place where the teachers will be communicating with the students. There's a stream page where they can be constantly presenting new materials or asking students to respond to questions or ideas. They can post materials and assignments for your students to submit directly in Google Classroom. And then teachers also have the ability to review those assignments and submit grades through here as well. It's a really easy tool to use, and we feel confident that it will be a great way to connect your students with their learning. Clever is another tool that you'll see a lot over the course of these next few weeks and in throughout the school year. And this is a portal that students use to access a ton of different online websites and resources. The beautiful thing about Clever is that it bypasses a lot of the hassle of usernames and passwords for external websites by using a single sign-on process. So all your students need to know to be able to access the majority of their tools is just their Bloomfield email address and password. Zoom is the tool that we will be using for any of our synchronous learning times. You may also see Google Meet happen here and there, as it happened a lot throughout the spring, but Zoom is going to be our primary platform so that we can take advantage of things like breakout rooms, live polling, interactive whiteboards, and things like that. When you're trying to use the parent portal to get your passwords, under the enrollment data tab, you will see something called the Z password and a combo listed under there. That is actually your student's Gmail password entered in without the dashes. So for example, the 11-22-33 would be entered in as 112233 on any website prompting for your student's bloomfield.org email address. For Google Classroom, accessing this is as simple as visiting the website classroom.google.com and logging in with your student's bloomfield.org email address. That will automatically take them to a page that has their own teacher's classroom and possibly even things like a media center classroom or an art classroom or things like that where they can connect with other teachers that they may see throughout the day. To access Zoom, each teacher will be providing a link for your students. You'll probably see that link come through via Google Classroom, maybe even in emails or Remind, or a combination of a lot of different places to make sure that you have easy access to those personal Zoom rooms that your teachers will be using. And then to access Clever, you simply visit the website clever.com/in/Bloomfield Hills. And don't worry, that website will be provided to you by your teachers as well. You'll choose the login with Google option and use your student's bloomfield.org email address and password to be able to get in and access just a wealth of different resources through Clever. So in addition to all of those tech tools, we just wanted to take a brief moment to reiterate that the first bit of time when it comes to your students' learning experience at Bloomfield Virtual, there probably will be a lot of time spent going over how to use the technology, how to access different websites, and trying to establish and create really great habits with our students so that accessing their materials just becomes second nature. And it's not a struggle for students or for parents to access the information that they need to be able to continue learning. The other part is that second from the bottom tab, the community and motivation piece. The first couple weeks, really in any school, even in brick and mortar, there's a huge focus on building classroom community, learning how to motivate students appropriately. It's usually just not quite as public as what it will be in a virtual environment. So our approach to learning really utilizes the scaffolding model where we will firstly focus on technology and access and building good habits, and then really work on online socialization, building community within our classrooms and within the whole Bloomfield virtual community, and really learning how to motivate our children and our students to be active participants in their learning.
So we also know that, of course, part of being a parent is trying to figure out a schedule for your children's day and having a sense of routine. I know I am looking forward to a little bit more of routine in our household as the school year begins. And so we wanted to again frame for you what your children's day might look and feel like. So for all of our Bloomfield virtual kiddos, their day is going to begin at 9:05, and that is when they will join the Zoom link that their teacher has provided to you and to them. And at that point, we should make sure that they're dressed for the day and have had some breakfast and have had a chance to be up and around for a little while. And then they'll be settling in with their class. And that first half hour of time in every classroom is really designated as that connection time. So some of you might know that is often called the morning meeting. And it's a time to connect, to look ahead at the schedule for the day, to think about any celebrations that are happening in the classroom. And just like Lauren said, just like in a brick and mortar classroom, that's really important time to frame your children's learning for the day. Then they have their morning block of learning time. So between 9:35 and 11:35, students will be engaging in learning through all kinds of different activities. And sometimes those will be synchronous and sometimes those will be asynchronous. And there are breaks built in, especially for our youngest students. These first weeks are going to feel long, and we want to make sure that we give them lots of chances to dance to Pebble Go and take their breaks and get the wiggles out and all those good things. Even for our fifth graders, they're going to take a little while to readjust to the school schedule, especially because it's in a very different way than they've been used to before. So during that morning block, each teacher will build their schedule just like they normally do in a brick and mortar school, where they may put some math time in the morning, maybe some reading time in the morning. And for some students, they might have a special in the morning. For some students, they might have a special in the afternoon. But at 11:35, everybody is going to break for lunch. We really wanted to keep that time consistent across all the grade levels, because we know that if you have multiple kids at home, having three different, maybe even four different lunch times was probably going to be hard when they're all sitting in your house and you're also trying to take care of things. So that lunchtime is common across all the grades. When the kiddos come back from lunch depends a little bit on the grade level. So we've given our youngest students a little bit longer to have hopefully some time outside if the weather is nice, maybe play some games, just kind of get a chance to get some of their energy out. And so they won't come back until 12:30. And some of our older students will be ready to come back at 12:15. And their teachers will communicate very clearly those return times for them after lunch. The same thing will happen in the afternoon. So between 12:15 or 12:30 and 3:35, students will be engaging in learning activities throughout the afternoon. Again, some of that time will be synchronous, some of that time will be asynchronous, and again, some students will have specials in the afternoon instead of in the morning. And then our school day ends at 3:35. And after 3:35, students certainly may have some additional asynchronous activities to check out or to look at before their next day of learning. So it's a little bit earlier than a typical elementary day would end, so that there's a little bit of that time built in at the end of their time. So we also really wanted to talk a little bit about how you fit in to your students' learning. And we framed this, if you've seen the term learning coach in a lot of our materials, it's the idea that we are really, really partnering with you this year. And we're relying so much on that partnership and communication so that the teacher and the family and the student are all on the same page. So, one of the very best things you can do, especially in these early weeks, is to test the technology before the school day starts. So, I've certainly had over the course of this week a couple of calls that my sound wasn't working when I got on, or I realized I needed to restart my computer. And I think your students are going to feel less anxious if they know that they're ready to go. So if you can help them by making sure technology is working, charging those devices overnight, and I forget to charge mine half the time. So I know they're going to need reminders to charge their devices or to be in a place where they can plug in. Don't be afraid to check in on the progress of your kiddos during the day, especially early on. They're probably going to be looking for a lot of reassurance and a lot of guidance, asking a lot of questions. I know that teachers will be communicating with families, and it is certainly okay, just like on the first day of school in a brick and mortar building, if you want to take your child to class and be there to wave and say hello, and then take a few minutes and say goodbye and step away. All of those routines that feel familiar to our kids are important in this environment too. I think one of the other things that's really important is really trying to affirm positive on task behavior. So finding those moments to say, wow, I really listened to how carefully you were following the teacher's directions, or I was so proud of you for listening to what your friend had to say and raising your hand before you spoke. some of those behaviors that are kind of different in the online environment are really going to take some positive reinforcement, I think, and we can use your partnership for that. And the last piece is really we want to reiterate that you are our partner coach, and absolutely, we appreciate that you'll be working with them, but we don't want you to feel like you have to be the expert in teaching these content areas. So if your student is struggling, or if it's not going well for you helping your child during that asynchronous time or later in the day, just as you would with a brick and mortar classroom, please reach out to the classroom teacher so that there's open communication and you can figure out what that student needs, and they can be the expert for you with you along as the supportive coach.
So another part of that support that you can give for your student is really designating a space for them to achieve their learning. We definitely know that our students thrive when they have a routine to follow. So if you can work to design a quiet learning space for them that has the essential materials that they need, both for online learning, say, for example, easy access to chargers if you need it for a device or things like that, and also for your offline learning. So if you need, notebooks or markers and glue sticks and things like that, that are all easily accessible for your students in one space, creating that location in your home or wherever it may be that your student is learning can really go a long way to help encourage a successful learning experience. I know for myself, like I mentioned, having somebody that's starting kindergarten for the first time next week, and I've gone through and tried to create a space for him where he has a comfortable place to sit. He's got some fun things up on the wall to help reinforce things like his alphabet and different number and math fact skills, and just easy access to the stuff that he's going to want to use, even frankly, independently of me. So just helping to create that spot for your students to be doing their learning at home can really go a long way in their experience.
Just one thing to add on, and it segues nicely to the materials conversation. I think about what I see when I walk into an elementary teacher's classroom. And you may remember from previous years, or if this is your first year with a kindergartner like Lauren, it's the little things like maybe they want a framed picture of their dog sitting on their desk where they do their schoolwork, or maybe they want a family picture up on the wall behind them. Those are the kind of things that teachers invite them to bring into the classroom. And so thinking about how that can still be part of their space, I think would be an exciting way to involve them in that process. So materials, we have sent out the suggested student supply list. And up on the screen, you can see the website. The Bloomfield Virtual website is now live, which is a great place to go to find information. We know a lot has been coming through email, and now that that website is up and live, that's a little bit more one-stop shopping for you. And we want to reiterate that those are suggested supplies. A lot of what is on there you probably have in your home. And what's most important is that your student has a space in which they can concentrate and enjoy their school day and know where to go for the things that they need. And if you have any questions about the supplies, I would encourage you to reach out to the classroom teacher once you get your placement email.
So, in addition to you being support for your students, we also want you to know that we are here to support you as much as we can as well. So, in the event that you need any help with tech support, with devices or accessing websites or things like that, that you don't feel like your teacher is the right person to reach out to, we do have a family and student support system in place. It's the same one that we would have used in the spring for anyone that was here with us then. It's just this bhstech@bloomfield.org email address and the 248-900-2470. One thing I will say is if you are especially emailing for help and tech support, as much information as you can give us about the issue as possible really helps to expedite the process and helps us resolve it for you in a speedy fashion. So if it's specific links that you need help with, or information about a device that you picked up. Just anything you can think of that we might need to know about it, including it in that email certainly helps right from the get-go.
So this is, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lauren.
It's okay. In addition to being able to find information and get responses from that support system, like Jen had mentioned earlier, the Bloomfield Virtual website is now live as well. So from our main Bloomfield Hills Schools district site, if you click on the Schools tab, you'll see Bloomfield Virtual listed along with all the rest of the districts, buildings, and schools, and you can find a ton of information there too.
Now I get to go, right? So we've been fielding quite a lot of questions about emails not coming through. And part of that is that as we adjust those distribution lists through the system that we use, some of that has been moving around a little bit. But one of the other components is that we invite you to double check that your contact information is accurate in your parent portal account, and that you're subscribed to the weekly newsletters that you want to be subscribed to. So if you go into My Bloomfield on the bloomfield.org site, you'll see that you can click on the Families tab. And in the Families tab, there are other buttons that you can click based on what you need help with. And in the weekly newsletter tab, which is centered in that page, you'll see the step-by-step directions for how to do things like check that your contact information is correct in the parent portal and update any newsletters that you may not be receiving. If at that point you're still not receiving emails that you believe are going out, please, of course, reach out to the tech support information that Lauren was just sharing. So there's been a lot of talk about meet and greets, and we know that there has been conflicting information, and we apologize as we tried to work to make decisions that met the needs of all of our different families and the almost 700 students that we have at Bloomfield Virtual this semester. It's an amazing group of kids who have chosen to be with us at Bloomfield Virtual. And so organizing some of these pieces has been a little bit complex. So what we're going to be doing is we will not be having a meet and greet both in person or virtually this week. Your classroom teacher for your child will be sending out their classroom placement emails welcoming their kiddos to the classroom either this evening or tomorrow morning. And they'll simply be including the Zoom link for the first day of school on September 8th. And they'll be introducing themselves to your kiddos and telling them some fun facts about themselves. And the first time they will see them on the screen will be on Tuesday, September 8th at 9:05. Then what we are going to do is on September 9th, and we can all hope that the weather cooperates. We do have September 10th as the rain date. But assuming that the weather is cooperating, September 9th, we are not going to have instruction. We are going to have a meet and greet day. What that's going to look like is in the morning, your child's teacher will communicate a time, a block of time, and a location where they will be available for scheduled in-person meet and greets. We want to remind you that those will be at sites across the district. We obviously did not want to have 700 students in the same place at the same time. That was going to be too much to manage safely. And so teachers will be communicating a place at one of our district sites where they will be located and the time that they will be there. And then you, if you feel comfortable and your child would like to see their teacher in person after that Tuesday half day of being behind the screen, we invite you to attend that in-person meeting. We just want to remind you that strict social distancing needs to be observed, and we are strongly encouraging masks. In the afternoon, if you are not comfortable attending in person and that's not the best choice for you, then teachers are also going to be on their Zoom calls for some more one-on-one time with those students. So just like students who attend the in-person meet and greet in the morning will get a couple of minutes of one-on-one time to talk to their teacher. Then students who are not comfortable doing that and would prefer to do that virtually will have a chance to do that in the afternoon. Teachers will be communicating their individual details about how sign up for that works and the location and time in the both morning and afternoon sessions. But just know that September 9th, that means that we won't be having synchronous live instruction at all because our teachers will be doing those two things throughout the day. So we also have had some frequently asked questions. I really appreciate that many people filled out the form to send in questions ahead of this evening so we could make sure we had answers that were clear, and we made sure we answered a lot of the main ones that people were asking. So the first one was questions regarding students who have IEPs or 504s in place. We just want to reassure you that all IEPs and 504s will be followed regardless of whether you're at a brick and mortar building in Bloomfield Hill Schools or with Bloomfield Virtual. And you can absolutely contact your child's caseload provider, me, or the BHS special education department if you have further questions about that. All of our teachers will be in partner with their students' support teachers. So just know that those communications are already happening behind the scenes. There are emails flying back and forth as those support systems make sure they reach out to classroom teachers about the needs of the students in their classes. Another question was, will there be an opportunity for virtual students to maintain relationships with their home school? We certainly hope so. This we have no desire to break apart the amazing relationships and friendships and connections to all of our home buildings, myself included. My youngest usually attends Lone Pine, and like I said, my oldest is at West Hills. And we have every hope that as the pandemic situation allows, we will have some of those school events that we can figure out a creative way to have safely, and you will continue to receive communication from your home building for that very reason. We encourage you to stay connected with the PTO at your home building, to keep apprised of ways that they are figuring out to continue to be in community. And the additional piece is that if there are clubs that are running through the home buildings, Bloomfield virtual students will be invited to participate in those virtually or in person, depending on what the situation allows, at their home building. So again, they have those opportunities to stay connected with the people in their home buildings and in their neighborhoods. How will information be shared throughout the school year? Predominantly, I'll be using emails and broadcasts to share broad information, and then via email as well if it's specific grade level information, just like you would from your brick and mortar home principal. Also, please remember, as Lauren said, that that Bloomfield virtual webpage is live and is a good place to go for information. There has been a few questions about how classes have been scheduled. And when we started to look at class placements, we realized it was not going to work to have students only from one school. And so we are excited that we have been able to put classrooms together from more than one elementary school. In most cases, it's two schools. In a few, it's three schools at the upper grades because we're pulling from three middle schools. And we have made sure that there is no student in a classroom that is the only one from their home building. We have tried to make sure that they have a small cohort within their class of students they're familiar with. And then they'll also be making friends that, if you fast forward, it's crazy to think about, but when they are ninth graders, they'll be with those students, and I really hope we'll look back on this time and say, "Oh, that's right, you were in my class that year we were in Bloomfield Virtual." And they'll have those stories and those memories to share together. Will there be any field trips? We certainly hope that we'll be able to use the Nature Center and the Bowers Farm to allow for some field trip experiences, and that families that are comfortable doing so will be able to attend those in person, and we'll be working out that partnership and those details as the year gets started. Another question about making up assignments if kids miss school. I think as much as possible, we all need to just think about Bloomfield Virtual as a different means of doing the same thing we do in a brick and mortar building. So just like in that setting, attending school and learning alongside the teacher and classmates is important. So if your child or children are absent, it's definitely a good idea to touch base with the teacher and find out what they missed and see what they can do to get ready for the next day of learning. The last one is a question about apps. I'm going to let Lauren answer this one before we move on.
Yeah, so the question is, what app should we load onto our student's device? And that's a little bit of a tricky question because we're talking about a lot of different types of devices here. I can tell you that any tools that a student might need immediately, such as Google Classroom or a clever Chrome extension or things like that, have been preloaded onto district-specific devices. If you're using your own device, it's a good idea to contact your student's teacher to find out if there are any apps or programs or Google Chrome extensions or add-ons or anything else that you should install before school starts. At the very least, I would highly recommend Google Classroom and Zoom so that you're ready to go when Tuesday rolls around next week. You have any other questions about apps or software or devices, especially even if you're using your own personal device, we absolutely can help you with those. Just again, send it to that BHS Tech email address or the phone number for our family support line.
So before we close out, we want to reiterate just a reminder to look for the very exciting email that is coming with classroom placements. I know it feels a little bit different than the kids hanging out at the mailbox waiting for the letter. This year, everything's a little bit different. But tonight and tomorrow, all of those teachers will be sharing their exciting emails, and I hope you'll enjoy those with your children. If for some reason by noon tomorrow you have not received an email, please reach out so that you can contact me and I can figure out why you didn't get the letter and make sure that we get that to you. So teachers tonight and tomorrow will be sending those out. So again, noon tomorrow is a good time to reach out if you haven't received those. Above everything, honestly, our teachers are so excited. I have just been floored with the hours they have put in working on their grade level teams and getting excited to think about new ways to welcome your students. They have just been so energized and so excited, and they can't wait to see the kiddos on September 8th. We're really looking forward to getting to know you and your families and your children, and know that we're here for you when you need things. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.